Not.
That's a new feature. It's handy, but it's a little awkward.
I know.
You know. Okay, so welcome to the first creative conversation, and we're nervous, excited, honored that everybody's here, and as we said, really hoping that you guys, as part of the founding members directory here, are going to help us really mold what this is and figure out, how can we bring this community to Canadian creatives and really build those resources. So thanks for being here today. Just a few things to cover. The call's being recorded, as you know, and we just ask that everyone just keeps themselves on mute as we're going through here, unless you're speaking to the group, just to avoid any background noises. I think we have such a small group right now that it's not a huge deal. It's just as it grows over time, sometimes there's the weird background noises and stuff that jump in and can kind of interrupt things. And then we were thinking that if there's questions during the presentation portion, maybe pop them in the chat. We're feeling this out. We're trying to figure out what the best approach to all this is, but we're thinking that if they're popped into the chat, then we can go through them in order at the end. We just didn't want you guys to have questions about something specific that we're going over and then forget it later on. So feel free to pop it in there and just know that it's been asked and it's in there, and we can address it. Kelly, I'll let you sort of give yourself an introduction here. I don't need to.
All right, well, for those that don't know me, I'm Kelly, the founder and creative director of Front Porch Studio. I was born and raised in Canada, just outside Toronto, and then spent about 13 years living in the US, running a creative studio there. And then I moved back and started Front Porch, and I really focus on working with service-based entrepreneurs, specializing in the health and wellness sort of niche and industry. And Marlo and I actually just met over social media, which is kind of like one of our favorite things, that we've sort of just created this out of honestly never meeting in real life, which
I don't know how tall you are.
I think I mean, all we know is our kids are very similar. We love running and design. So I think, that's all about me.
Yeah. And I'm Marlo, founder and creative director of M81 Creative. I've been running it, I say 10 years, but really when I started it was this like side gig while I was working in studio for other organizations and companies as a designer. And then when I had my daughter and didn't really want to go back full time into studio work, I just put all of my focus into really trying to build up my freelance. I call it freelance. I kick myself now for ever saying that, because you're a business owner. But I was like, you know what, I'm going to really focus and try to take this side gig into an actual career and run a business and establish some clients. So that's really sort of the path that I took into that. Also, Dave, that's on here, sort of tapped me on the shoulder shortly after coming out of school and said, hey, do you want to come to George Brown and into the continuing ed program and teach with me? So Dave took me under his wing and really brought me into the world of teaching in the graphic design industry as well. And that's really where, sort of the two things really kind of came together for Creative Roots was, Dave showing me my love for teaching and really getting involved in really that ability to share information and see how it helps other people, accomplish a lot of things in their life. There's just something really brilliant about that. And then my love for being an entrepreneur and running businesses, it's been in my blood since I was a kid. I feel like I've always had something going on. And, it's challenging when you're starting because there isn't a lot of information out there. There might be little pieces of information here or there, but there isn't really something in one spot. So that's kind of where that all bubbled up. And then I reached out to Kelly and I was like, we're always asking each other things and helping each other. It's like, imagine that we could turn this into something that we could really connect more of us creative business owners to just say like, hey, what are you doing for this? And just being able to ask that community and get those answers instead of having to kind of piece that together on your own. So just bringing Julie in here. So that's our sort of brief introduction and really a little bit about why we started Creative Roots without getting into too much detail. Hi, Julie. Just bringing you in. We've just done little introductions here and just jumping into things. So
Sorry, I'm late.
no problem. We said if you come a little bit late, and we totally get it. There's bedtime and
Yeah.
Yeah.
work and all that stuff. Yeah, for sure. Kelly, you want to start with this? I touched a little bit on why we started Creative Roots.
Yeah, so a little, just like Marlo said, there are so many things, little bits and pieces everywhere throughout the internet, throughout social media, and like what to do when you're starting a business. I think a big thing for me when I moved back was I've now been here, well, I've been here for 3 years, but grew up here, lived here, and starting a Canadian business is very different. And so for me, a lot of my connections were all in the US, and I really did not know how to not only look for those connections, but really differentiate in, okay, if someone in the US is pricing something like this, what does that mean for Canada? There's a very different change in not only pricing, but resources and our legal rules and all the rigmarole that goes around it. So for me, I also just missed community, and I missed, I'm like a huge extrovert. I miss being around people. I think that's one of the big things about being a creative person. We love to just ask people for advice and, hey, do you know that keyword shortcut? Like what is going on? And so I think there's so much that you can do through social media, asking different people on their advice, but to have an ongoing community was really something that I was missing. And so when Marlo and I kind of connected on this, it just seemed like, yeah, this is what we need. So yeah, it just seems like a huge gap in the specifically like Canadian atmosphere. So that's kind of how this really came about.
Yeah. The Canadian atmosphere, as well as the Canadian creative. Like,
Yes.
anytime I need a resource, I'm always buying something from someone in the US, and it's just such a different, it's helpful, but it's just so different. And it's even things like pricing. Like Kelly and I had a conversation about this yesterday, where it's like, a lot, like Canadians are conservative. We're a lot more conservative. So even when it comes to like the way that they price things and approach things in the United States, that won't fly in Canada. It just, we're just a different breed. We're different. We have a different approach to things. So if we, and I want to find those, I would much rather be engaging with those Canadian resources offering a lot of the stuff that I'm going to the United States for right now. So like, how do I find that, and how do I connect that and really bring that in? And so that's part of what we're hoping to build too, is really like a directory of Canadian resources in that sense. So the agenda today is really just quickly touch base on things that we wish we knew when we started. Things that we think that you should do in year one, and then things that can wait. This isn't by any means goals. It's just our experience and what we think. But you could disagree and sort of flip things. We're open for a conversation. We'll talk about our favorite resources. We've tried our darndest to put as much Canadian stuff in there, but it's tough. And what we're working on right now is just really build those.
All the ding dongs. I love it.
Yeah, I know. They're coming in. Hi, everyone that's new and sort of getting in. We're just starting to go through the agenda, so you haven't missed anything in terms of what we're talking about. And then just the very last thing is we're gonna talk about things that we look back on now and laugh, about our early days in the business. And I'm sure you guys, again, you all have your own, and we'd love to hear that too. So the things that we wish we knew when we started, again, Kelly, I'll let you sort of run with that.
Yeah. So this, I think back to 4 years ago when I started my own business after working in the design industry for many, many years. And I think the biggest one was establishing those onboarding processes very early and taking advantage of the downtime that you have at the beginning to work on those processes. I think there's so many things I look back to and I'm like, what I would like, why wasn't I setting up an actual system versus every time something came in, I was dealing with it as a one-on-one sort of situation, which still does happen, but really making sure that those processes up front are set in stone and sort of a streamlined, if possible, an automated system that you really can just kind of let it run as almost a machine. And that wasn't even something that I knew was a possible thing. I had no idea what Asana was or Bonsai or Dubsado. I didn't even know that those were an option. I Googled things, but I didn't even know what to Google. So I think I really wish that I set up some sort of like streamlined system at the very, very beginning. And so that was one thing that, yeah, that would be like my top thing.
Yeah, and the other thing too,
Next.
is your downtime, establishing those processes, but then also using that downtime to like, it's sort of like you understand that it's going to take you, let's say 3 years to build your business. That's the typical timeline. And you always worry about those downtimes and you're like, oh, I don't necessarily have a new client coming up, and you're sort of worrying about it and you're doing your marketing and you're trying to get that. But I wish I had have taken those times to like build those things that would have been, they call it passive income. It never really is, but like building out those things now that I wish that I had, of sharing my knowledge with people that I could be, even just for the price of a cup of coffee, just sharing something that people could be purchasing. I don't have the time. I have so many ideas right now of things that I want to build and put out there for, other creatives to like take apart and for a small amount of money, but I don't have the downtime to build it. And so if I had that knowledge back then, I probably would have, I maybe wouldn't have had the experience, but like whatever I knew, I would have tried to be putting down in some sort of even a free giveaway. It's just those things that you build, that stuff that you put on your blog and your website, and you kind of hand
No,
that.
I wouldn't even I didn't even know about a free giveaway at the beginning. I was like, okay, just like sign up for my boring newsletter. Like, what am I going to write about? I think another big thing for me was listening to my gut. And that was something that I was told from my CEO of the studio that I worked for. Make sure you listen to your gut. That's what everyone said. My parents are entrepreneurs. I grew up in a family of that. When you feel that something is a red flag, that's what you should listen to. And I learned that in my first year, that I had a red flag, and I kept saying to myself, well, these are all the scenarios, blah, blah, blah. No, it'll be different. And it was not. And I learned the hard way. And I think from then on, it was like, why didn't I listen? I knew there were some red flags. And so from now on, I say, it's almost like that movie. I can't think of the name, but anyways, like, you are not the exception, you're the rule. Do not let it, like, listen to your gut. If you hear a red flag, that's it. And you should just move on. There's no, yes, I may have this client, it might be beneficial, but it's filling a gap in a negative way for someone else that may be coming into your business that is going to be very more open to your process and can easily work through your whole system versus someone that you're going to be stumbling through and it's just going to be not the right way. So that would be my second big thing that I wish I knew.
Overhead Equals Death is a great one. It's in one of my favorite books, and it's a Canadian author that it's in the book. Again, that's at the end in the resources, but when it was sort of the introduction to the book, and he's talking about how that was something his father always told him, and he had it sticky to his computer when he started out, and his dad was like, overhead equals death. And the whole book is about, it really just shattered my whole idea that in order to grow, I had to expand. And it made me comfortable in the skin that I was in and the situation that I was in. And I was like, you know what? I don't need my business to grow further than my office at home. And I enjoy being a solopreneur. I know some people want to have a studio and they want that team around them and they want to get out of the house. But I didn't want that, but I felt like I had to do it because that was growth. And, having, even if it was just a book telling me that I didn't have to do that, that if I suddenly then took on more overhead of a studio and employees, it's okay, but I would be, if it's the way that I wanted to go, but I would likely be spending my time managing that studio and those employees rather than doing the work that I love. So it's, you really have to ask yourself, do you want the studio because you think that that's like the ego driven thing that you're supposed to be doing in order for, when someone asks you what you do, it's like, you don't feel like, oh, I'm just a freelancer in my basement. It's like, no, I run a business. Just because it's by myself, it's still a business. I don't need the studio and I don't need the 4 employees. I'm perfectly happy being by myself and running it that way. And so that was a really pivotal moment that I think I spent the years leading up to reading that book and really hearing that, thinking that eventually the end game was to like buy that studio space outside of my home and get those employees into it, because that's what a designer and a creative director eventually does. And it's not true, and it's nice to know that now, but, and it's okay if that's what people want. That's the other thing too. Like if that's your goal and that is your passion and that's what you want to do, it's okay to do that, but you don't have to take on that overhead in order to feel like you've made it in that sense. So.
No, I think that's so true, because it's something that I know I go back and forth with, even goal setting at the beginning of my business, like what I think, especially as a creative, it's really hard to make sure, okay, do I want to own a studio? Is that what I want to do? You're then becoming the like mentor and CEO and, creative director of all these other people and managing them. So you're doing less of the actual work. So if that's something that you want to kind of take on yourself, that's completely fine. But making sure that at the end of the day, that you're still going to be happy putting in all those hours and all that time managing a business and a group of people versus actually doing that creative work. And I think that's a big struggle within the creative industry. I know I saw it previously, and I've talked to other designers about it, is once you kind of get to that next level, or if you are managing a group of photographers, how do you really convey that sort of, if someone's coming to you for that specific look or that sort of strategy, like how do you create your own sort of joy out of your business at that point without it kind of giving you a lot of burnout? So that hopefully that is something that we will be discussing on a later topic in depth. But yes, that's on that.
I think the other ones are pretty self-explanatory, so I won't linger on them. We'll keep moving along. And we just, I think our last post as well, like it's easier to talk about divorce when you're in love, which is, one of my favorite statements. But when I learned that statement, it's like, oh, I need to put an exit clause in my contract. What? I need to have this. But it is very helpful to have, to talk about when you're super happy with your clients, talk about, what's going to happen and a way out. Include a profit margin. Had no idea that hourly billing did not provide me that. I didn't know, when you first sort of start out. Confidence is telling someone when something's out of scope, and supplement your income, but don't forget about your business. And that's another thing too. You might get hired on to subcontract somewhere or be, a freelancer for another company, and you might be putting in all these hours and you'll watch your own business sort of dwindle and die. So it's sort of like, understand that you've got this income coming and they're helping you, but don't forget, your sort of long game in running your own space. So things that we think that you should do in year one. For me, I know the first thing that I did was hire an accountant. I did not get my legal contract sorted until sort of further out, but definitely hire an accountant. That was the best thing that I ever did in sort of setting myself up. What about you, Kelly?
I think just piggybacking off that, separate your personal income from business accounts. I'm someone that likes super organized things. And so for me, I just need clean separation right from the get-go. I think on the next point, like invest in strategy and photos first.
All the photographers are going to love that.
I know. I think that especially in this day and age, visuals are like the best thing ever that you can do. But you also need to know what you're doing with your business, like who are you targeting, what are you trying to attract, and what these like where are these going? So I think you need to go through some personal strategy on where you want your business to go. But I think as well, like you can put a couple other things on the back burner for maybe, a year and a half, year two. But I would say that photography is one of the top things that that I personally can't recreate. And so that was something that for me, that was like, okay, this needs to get going.
Yeah, I think like you like in year two, invest in the copywriting and maybe get someone to come in and help you maybe up your Squarespace or Wix template, or maybe you're using sort of a free platform, like get all that going. But like you can't, iPhone photos will just take everything down. So I guess our thought process on that was having the professional photos will get you further, and then save up for getting that proper web, getting that proper copywriting in place, and getting your all of that other stuff in there. But it's just imagery. You just can't. It's that first impression that you just will never be able to kind of get over, and it's just like it's more bang for your buck in the first year, in our opinion. Make connections. And I think we figured out, as Kelly and I were talking through this, it also leads into say yes and figure it out, because the more connections you make, it's easier to say yes to something and then figure it out, because you have more people to ask how to figure it out. But I like when Kelly put that one in there, the make connections, I was like, yes, that's huge. And again, as creatives, sometimes we can be fairly introverted and not great at reaching out to the community around us. But I have to say, as an extroverted introvert, and really struggling with making myself present on social media, I've grown to really love the community on Instagram that I've made in the creative community. I've met so many amazing creative business owners that I've just gotten great advice from or help from. I've hired, I've engaged with, learned so much from the way that they run their business. It's just those connections and really that community. I can't say what it's done for me personally. So connections and say yes to whatever's going on and just figure it out.
For sure. No, I think I am definitely an extrovert, but for me, I moved back to Canada and I really did not know anyone in my grown-up life. I had not lived here in 13 years. And for me to be able to come back, it was really just, I will talk to and meet whoever I come in contact with. I think there's a photographer on Allison that I coincidentally overheard. This is like so random. I overheard a person in the coffee shop talking about photography. And I was like, oh my gosh, are you a photographer? Like just totally randomly, this random girl. And she was like, no, I'm not, but I'm talking about this other photographer. And she gave me her phone number, and that was that. We actually have worked together on so many projects. We've got back and forth connections at this point. And yeah, you really don't know who knows and what anyone's tree has. So yeah, just always sell yourself and just tell your story and make as many connections as possible, no matter what they may be. And yes, always figure it out.
I was gonna say the next one, I feel like backup files regularly.
Oh, my backup files. I don't know who follows me on social media. That is like, I learned that this year. I always backed up. So yes, back up your files regularly. I personally had this happen to me this year. A 2-year-old computer, I went to update my software with Apple and it deleted my whole hard drive. So that was my own personal fault. I had not backed up in months.
We're all getting palms.
I know. I'm still thinking about it. And add COVID, getting a new computer, getting it into the system was a nightmare. But long story short, back up, the computer was fine. I could have just reset it and it would have been fine. But because I needed it to be recovered. It was a process of, I lost, let's say, like a week of work. So yes, back up regularly, no matter what. Like,
Yeah,
don't,
automated. Mine's all automated. And I have a backup to my backup as well.
yeah, like do all the backups.
And then the other one, there's going to be so many things that you need to learn, and there's going to be time for it. Like I only learned to code websites in the past 12 months and like always building those skills. But I think that a basic understanding of search engine optimization will get you really far in like getting that website out there, but then making sure that you're getting in front of people appropriately. There's so many rules that Google is constantly changing in terms of how they're ranking sites. Like I now need to go through my website and reduce my image sizes because people are getting punished for that. Like I just didn't pay attention, but just understanding what is out there and what you do in order to get your to get your website ranking and making sure that you're getting in front of people and you're not getting punished is a big thing. Just in terms, you don't need to know all the marketing. I just think a basic understanding of that in your first year will go a long way. Things that can wait. And again, some of these might be controversial and we're totally up for that conversation, but it was just our initial feelings. Social media, I always thought invest in web first, like
Yeah.
get your website going, understand the SEO, build your email list, which I horrid at. Need to get your email list going, understand SEO, invest in AdWords, like really getting your website in front of, if you're going to be some like a local service, really make sure that you're trying to get in those, appearing in those searches when people are in your area looking for whatever service you're providing, I think is really important. And then, social media can come after. I feel like a lot of people only have a social media account and they don't have a website. And I think that when you put all of your eggs into a basket where someone else owns it, it's a very dangerous place to be. Kelly and I know so many different creatives that for no good reason have had their entire Instagram shut down and they've had something ridiculous like 15,000, 20,000 followers and suddenly their entire lifeline to their business is gone. So I feel like invest in something that you own first and then put your time into social media.
Yeah, 100%. And I think getting into back to the whole overhead equals death, expensive memberships, platforms, and equipment. I think the benefit of being a creative is we are our main piece of equipment. I think photographers have probably the largest overhead. I would say designers, we do have, computers are expensive, but as well, photographers need a computer and any sort of photography equipment on top of that. So the other things are figure out what you need to run your business on a basic level. You don't need the most high-end sort of membership and any sort of, you need the basics and you just need to make it work. And once you start seeing that profit, then you can move on. And I think that really runs into the business plan and business coach. I get asked that all the time. What was your business plan? And for me, I really didn't have one. I still don't. I still am running on millions of pieces of paper that are notes and digital lists and all sorts of millions of ideas. And I think, yes, you need an end goal, but to basically have, you just want to start any day. If it's today, if it's tomorrow, just get moving. And that's sort of the main goal to your plan. And I think Marlo and I both have talked about business coaches, and it's something that for me, I look to and definitely think that, yeah, it may be in my future at some point, but I don't know. I don't know where everything's going. And I think it really stems back to, if I looked at my business 4 years ago of what I thought that my business was going to be, I really thought, okay, I'm going to niche down into a more sort of boutique, sort of like a quaint little store. I want to do some packaging. I ended up now, 4 years later, that's really not what I enjoy doing. And it's not what my clients are attracted to. Like they are attracted to me because I love health and wellness personally, and I love working with those clients. I love working with people, and I like diving into who they are and what they really want to express to their audience. And so I think if I would have started with a business coach or a plan 4 years ago, I think it would have taken me in a very different path versus
You're on the wrong trajectory.
versus now it kind of like naturally stemmed in that direction. So yeah, maybe a year from now, that's kind of something I will go in the direction of. But
like get to know yourself and your business first. So
yeah,
don't do it. And if you have invested it in the beginning, that's great. We're just saying in hindsight now, we evolved and we changed so much that doing it a little bit later in the process had more value than in the beginning, because we got to know who we were and who our clients were. And they weren't at all
exactly.
where we thought we were going. So that was just our personal experience. And same, like I thought I was going to be going into one sort of way. And now when I look back on the type of clients that I work with, it's all, in a completely different area doing completely different things, but it makes sense. Like it's where I should be. So it's just whether it's 6 months or 8 months or a year, it's just settling a bit into those shoes and getting a feel for them before you commit to like laying out the plan and the path and all of that stuff. Is really just get to know yourself and your business and your clients a little bit. Favorite resources. So we've tried to get a good mix of, again, like we said, Canadian in here. And we do we're actively working on a large member resource area right now that has a ton of mix of Canadian resources. But these are just a few of our favorites that we pulled out here. I guess I'll stop. The books on the left-hand side are ones that I've thrown in there. Company of One was on what we were talking about earlier about that overhead equals death. This book I recommend to every single client that I work with. I tend to work with other solopreneurs, or it's like a team of 2 or 3 at the most. And so this book, this book is applicable to larger organizations as well, but there's just a lot of great information in there about, what does it mean to be a small business or even a small sort of unit within a larger organization? And there's just so much great information in there about running a company of one and really having that mindset and understanding that growing doesn't mean expanding, and understanding, working out what you need to make in an entire year, and then saying, you know what, it gives you that freedom to like turn down jobs that you don't necessarily need. It helps you get understanding of having enough money in the bank so that if you don't get projects for 6 months, you don't need to worry. You've got sort of that income. So there's just a lot of great information in there about how to set yourself up as a company for one and live comfortably and not run yourself ragged or always feel like you're chasing that work because you're starving. So it's just a really nice way to get that balance. And he's Canadian. He's from the West Coast. And just wrote this really incredible story. The other one is Pricing Creativity by Blair Enns. It's a bit of an investment. I feel like it's like somewhere between $300 to $500, but it is a phenomenal book. It's more of a workshop, I would say, in a book, but it's really pricing a creative service is tricky. You're not giving someone a product. And so really, it's a bit of a different animal when you're really trying to understand how to price yourself with clients and offering packages and sort of like, how do you do that? Do you always put everything in sort of the same package? Do you, there's all this talk about value-based pricing. It's like, well, what is that even? So I just found that this book really gave me a solid understanding of how to price creative services based on who I was working with and the language that went around that, and really being able to educate people with the reason as to why I was pricing something so that I can stand behind it comfortably. And I don't ever want anyone to feel like I am taking advantage of them. I want them to understand that I'm pricing something in a specific way because that's the value of it, and they're going to get a return on investment. So it's just got a lot of great information in there for whatever creative service you're providing. Yeah, I'll let Kelly jump in.
Yeah, I think Skillshare, I'm assuming most people are familiar with. Everything under the sun that you want to learn is on there. If you want to teach something, you can teach it on there. Skillshare is just one of the most amazing resources. I remember using it a few years ago and I was just blown away. I think Unsplash as well is like as a designer, it is one of the best, along with Pexels, which we don't have listed here, just a free photography website. I don't know still how it's free with all like what the photographers are doing, but it's such an amazing site to look through and download to kind of supplement any sort of custom photography that you are using for your business. Business of Creativity, I will let you go on.
Yeah, that was a woman that I found, again, I think from the West Coast. A lot of these Canadian resources, like same with Contracts Market, Jamie Bell, she's out west as well. So they seem to have a lot of good stuff out west. But it's essentially like she runs a lot of, it's an online community. I think she's a photographer, and she's sells mentorships and programs. So, you know, you can buy these mentorship programs through her. But outside of that, she's got an amazing YouTube channel. She's got amazing resources on her website about running a creative business. So I just put that in there. I thought it was super inspiring to see another Canadian really pulling together their experience in the industry and trying to share that with our community. So it was something a little bit different than Creative Roots, but I felt, you know, definitely something that we want to lean in and offer and share and get the word out there. Watch her YouTube videos. They're fantastic.
Yeah. And then Asana, Honeybooks, Bonsai, the list goes on, which will all be in our resource list. Like we talked about at the beginning, like setting up those initial sort of foundations on how you're going to run through onboarding, how you're going to invoice, how you're going to expense or do your expenses, how you're going to do your contracts, all that stuff. Getting a system in place at the beginning is so crucial so that 3 years from now, you're not trying to shift your mentality, but also run clients that are already like onboarded through this, and then I'm this, and so you're half all over the place. So those are kind of our top 3 things. Branding with Bree is very specific to designers. This is a very basic but super informative branding and sort of strategy course on how she brings on clients, and it really focuses on the one concept method, which is something that I run my studio on. She is, like, I would say, one of the kind of founders of this teaching method for designers. I would say that she launched her course maybe 8 years ago, which was kind of unheard of. So she really kind of paved the way for this sort of teaching online, and really just create the whole sort of platform for all these designers to kind of start their own businesses, which is really great. Yeah. And then Contract Markets. Yeah.
Jamie's amazing. And how I found Jamie is I actually purchased a contract for graphic design and web design through an American company, and then realized that a lot of the clauses in there weren't applicable to me as a Canadian. And I found her and I was like, no, I just bought contracts from the States. And so she sells contracts for photographers, for social media managers, for designers, for creative studios. Like, she's got, if you're in the creative industry, she has a contract for you, and it's all based on Canadian laws and that sort of stuff. So she helped me clean up. She actually said, well, just hire me to clean up your contracts and Canadianize them. And she was just such a pleasure to work with. And before her, I had reached out to a Canadian law firm and had a horrific experience with the way they were treating me. So she was just such a breath of fresh air. And I just really love her approach as a lawyer. She's just different, and her contracts are fantastic. And she's just a great human. She's very supportive. She'll answer all your questions and just provide you with a wonderful experience. And then Grammarly, I know, Kelly, that's yours.
I love Grammarly. I am not someone, I'm super detail oriented, but I could not proofread something for the life of me. So Grammarly saves my life daily, because it literally loaded onto your computer and it reads whatever you write. If it's in InDesign, if it's your emails, if it's your social media posts.
I need to.
Yeah, if it's like you're designing a website, I actually have stuff that comes through. I mean, it does like ask you to correct it if it, it gives you like different things, but this is my savior as I write anything. So this is like I highly recommend this, especially even in anything I find that nowadays our emails become so shorthanded, and that's fine once you're like, in with a client, and it totally depends on who you're talking to. But sometimes you get those clients that really want those more professional emails. And for me, this kind of saves me. So yeah.
I'll quickly blow through this because I want to get to
Yeah, I know. I know we're getting like,
we laughed about. I think everyone would probably, this resonates with you. What you charged, what you designed or photographed or provided, those early things, our proposals, and our font choices.
yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, I think all that.
So a lot and cry in the corner a little bit too. Okay, so let's just jump into the Q&A. I'm going to open up my my little chat window here and just see what we got. Okay. Branding is so important. Heck yeah, no biz card. I'd love to talk more about email lists. Okay.
Okay.
Lease your tech, best decision we ever made. Okay, awesome, dude. Pricing creativity is gold, US dollars 100 for the ebook. Oh, there you go. Okay, so I got the whole shebang, the printed book. So that's where I paid the 320. I know, or okay, amazing.
She's amazing.
Okay, cool. That's lovely. Okay, so there weren't any questions in there, but does anyone have
I have a question.
Yeah.
So with regards to email lists, so what I've been finding, like I have a huge email list after 13 years in business. I've collected a lot of emails. And I've just been noticing over the last couple of years that like the open rates are just pitiful. Like I used to have like a 40 to 50% open rate, and now I'm lucky if I get like 15% open. Like, are you guys finding that as well? Like, I don't know if it's my content or if it's just people just aren't, they're so inundated with emails, they just delete it and don't even read it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a fatigue going on right now. I think there's a email fatigue. I think there's a Zoom fatigue. I think there's a COVID fatigue. So I don't know if it's just like the result of what we're in right now, where people are just tuning out. The other thing too, it depends on knowing like, what are you sending and how often are you sending? It used to be based on this sort of like rhythm of like when you would send it out and how often. And now I know that the sort of mind shift of what I don't know who they are, but what I'm reading is, really only send out those emails when there's something like valuable that you're bringing into the inbox. So if you're not emailing, every month, that's okay. If it's like you send maybe 2 emails 1 month and then 1 email 3 months later, as long as there's value in there and you're not selling or asking for something or whatever that is. So it's really just what's in there. What are you sending to these people? And then, yeah, it could just be.
Oh, you froze. I don't know if it's me or you.
I think another big thing is there's the email, especially lately, is very excessive. But I think another thing is really thinking about what are you showing to people, and less about I think as a creative, it's really hard to on social media as well. Like, here's all my work, look at this beautiful stuff, but that's actually not doing anything for your audience. You really want to make sure you're thinking about what is your target market looking for. Like, as a photographer, what are, so for example, let's say there's kindergarten graduation. So maybe it's tips on how to do a DIY kindergarten graduation at home, and something like that. It may not necessarily lead them to book a session with you, but it's something that will open your email and it will keep your name top of mind. I think that's a big thing through Pinterest marketing and through social media and it's a really hard thing as a creative, because we want to show our work and we really want to show what we're doing. So yeah, really trying to think about like what you're giving to them, and less about booking a session or a new, I updated something on my website, or really just trying to be helpful in the actual current time, if that helps at all.
Yeah, I've definitely have done that over the years
Okay, great.
and still do it, but it's
Yeah.
like it's just like I almost feel like the email is not worth it anymore because the people are just not opening and reading the emails anymore.
Oh yeah, there's so many email. I mean, timing as well as, but yeah, the email marketing these days is just,
I think it's like thinking back to yourself, because I'm the same. Like I get so much stuff, and the thing that I hate is like, "Hi, I'm 81." I'm like immediately delete. Like, okay, you can't even like. What do you mean? You're calling me by my business name?
Yeah, that's stupid.
But there are a few emails that I get from lists that I sign up, and it's like there's just constantly that, like they're constantly bringing value to me, and I read it and I enjoy it, and it resonates with me, and I'm like, you know what, like that was helpful, or it's just fun. It's like their favorite things, and I read through it, and it's like, oh, that was even helpful. Like your favorite luggage. Like when I start traveling again, maybe I'll get myself.
yeah, maybe I'll look at it.
It's just, I think it's like, I think about the emails that I do open and on the email list that I'm at, and it's just about the value that they're bringing. And they've just become that trusted resource to me where it's just, the value's there. So I think it's just really figuring out what that, like who your audience is and what is that value that you can be bringing to their inbox so that they trust when they get an email from you that they're going to be like, oh yeah, like I enjoy reading this every time I get it.
Yeah, and short and sweet.
Yeah, totally. Right, Dave. Be brief, be bold, be gone. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. No words, which our copyright Shauna is probably kicking herself. Any other questions? Comments? Everyone's on mute still.
It's hard.
Yeah, words.
I'm just reading Aisha's
Oh, I missed that.
Aisha's comment here. How do we know what's going on in their lives? Speak to them personally. Yeah, for sure. That is tough. Like, yeah, it's sort of like you can only go so far to personalize in that sense.
Yeah.
Like, for sure.
Well, that's kind of where social media comes in too, though, right? Like if you're developing relationships with people, either through Instagram or Facebook and getting to know, like you can watch someone's Instagram stories and kind of get to know them that way, right? And then if you can get them on your email list, then that helps too. But, I think social media definitely plays a role there.
Yeah. I think as well, how you can also capture the way you're capturing those emails. You can add a more in-depth sort of sign up form or registration where you do add, especially if you are a photographer, like if you have kids, are you married? Are you, where do you live? What's your favorite things? Or kind of add a little bit of personalization into those sort of email forms. That does sort of help specify like what your audience is. I know that Squarespace doesn't allow for that through actual forms, but it depends on whatever email platform you're using. If you're using MailChimp or Webflow, or what, there's so many email platforms, which we will go into also in our resources. But that way you can really specify like a checklist of what your people are looking for and who they are.
Yeah, you can curate different groups in this.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I don't have like any kind of true understanding of this, but I think if they have, my assumption is it's not the worst thing in the world necessarily that they're not opening it. If they have not unsubscribed to you,
Yeah.
there's still, I think, a small value in the fact that your name comes up in their email list, and like you get continually, they get a reminder of your name over and over again. And I think if they haven't gone in and done the action of unsubscribe, there's potential there, even though they're not coming in and reading everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's a good point.
I was saying
That's my thinking.
so true.
Even with social media and all that kind of stuff, like there've been so many times where I'm like, you don't get the engagement, or you're not getting responses from whatever it is, but then you get people calling, you're like, I have been following you for X amount of months or a year or this, and you think, oh, like we haven't even engaged yet or anything like that. Like I think some people are just sort of silent followers. And I know that for myself, like there's some people and newsletters I've signed up for and I'm like, yes, one day I'm going to get into that. One day I'm going to get
Yeah.
them there, and I don't get rid of them because it's on my intention to do something. So I don't think it's a total, like,
Totally.
think if they're still there, there's still potential. And then maybe once all the email burnout's a little bit subsided, you never know, but.
No, that's so true. Yeah, if they're not unsubscribing, you're not losing anything,
Mhm.
which is very true.
Okay. Aside from questions, like as we're developing this community, I guess really just we'd love to hear about like, how did this feel? Was there value? Like,
Yeah.
how did this creative
Tell
conversation?
us everything, basically. We have so many, like, if you guys could see our list of things, yeah, hopes and dreams. But we really want this to be a collaborative sort of like experience at the beginning. We want
You have a
the
hand up.
first, oh, we
Dave.
have
Dave has a question.
you may.
I was gonna jump in because I love what you guys are doing, and I actually have to run. I have another call, but I think everything that you're doing is incredible. I think it's so needed, especially in the Canadian market. I know Marlo and I have talked about like the future pro group and how everyone's just like juiced to be on a call with Chris Dow, and like for legit business owners, we like want to ask real questions and deal with real issues. And so I think it's really excellent. I don't really have anything else to add in terms of everything I saw today was incredible. I just want to jump in on the stuff you guys were talking about before with email and everything. I guess what I would offer all of you is like, just understand the goal and the intention for the thing that you're doing. We're very clear that we get zero clients from social media content. We get almost no clients from doing email. It's a way for us to build our profile. It's a way for us to build our equity in the mind of the client or in the mind of the audience, but we're 100% clear we're just never going to get clients that way. And we're okay with that. And if you are trying to get clients that way, then it's, getting into the mind of the client and how can you elicit them to engage in a new way with you, right? And I think when Marlo and Kelly, you were talking about like what can wait and what to spend your time on. Spend your time on the things that are going to bring you the business, right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm with you. If they're not unsubscribed, they're still there.
Yeah.
But I love it. I think you guys are incredible.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, exactly it. Like we want this to be not just about us. Like that is so amazing to end on this, even though you have to leave, Dave. Like we want everyone's input. We want everyone to like be in this conversation at the end of the sort of session that we do. We are no experts. We are just sort of,
Yeah, we're not trying to be like, we're not trying to.
no, we just want to like start the fire.
We're just super excited
Yeah.
to some sort of a way to bring a community together. We're just excited to share what we know and super excited to hear what other people know, and just say like, there's so much power in numbers, and let's just, let's see how many of us we can get together and how powerful we can all be as we start to share this knowledge and grow from there.
Okay, bye. Marlo, you're a rock star. Love you. Bye.
Okay. So we've got a few, I know we're at 1 minute to 9. We've got a few things to cover. If anyone has to jump off at any point, completely understand. So don't feel bad, but we just have a few things. If you've got the next sort of 5 minutes to hang out, we can go over. And if there's any other questions, pop them in there if I've talked over you. I just want to be mindful of everybody's time.
I know.
But really what we want to know is, what's next. So for our next month's creative conversation, we want everyone to vote. So let us know what like we put 3 up here, but if you have something that's like burning on your mind, even throw that out there. But we figured, you know, do you guys want to talk about the whole reason why we did the first creative conversation about things we wish you knew when we started? Because we thought, well, where should we start? At the beginning. So from here, I mean, the world's our oyster. Where can we go? We can talk about like our onboarding, planning, and processes and share that in the next creative conversation and talk with everybody about theirs or what burning questions you have about onboarding and how you can improve yours. Is it pricing? Should we have an open conversation about pricing in a Canadian marketplace? Because I know for me personally, talking with other creatives in the United States, like it is a completely different animal pricing your services in Canada compared to the US. And I don't feel, and I feel like we're super conservative in Canada, and we're also very quiet when it comes to money and pricing, and we don't really talk about it. So, you know, and we will talk about all these eventually. We're just talking about the next one, but
What's the next? Yeah.
pricing. Or is it like website platforms? Like, are people wondering like where they should be moving their business online? If you don't have a website, what is the best platform? What are we using? What are you using? What's out there? What's search engine optimization? Like, you know, do you want to talk about web and that? So in the comments, just drop in number 1, 2, or 3, and we'll look at that, or pop in something that you're dying to talk about, and we'll try to in the next month kind of pull together something based on that. And then we just quickly, I mean, Kelly and I haven't done a huge amount on the website or even on social media about talking about exactly like what is Creative Roots and what is the member resources. So I think that we just want to start to talk about what we think it's going to be, but just understand we're still in beta mode and we're still trying to develop this and really understand what it is. But our intention and the reason why we came together was, oh, hey, Kelly, you know how I always ask you all the time, like, what are you doing for this? Oh yeah. It was like, well, wouldn't it be amazing if there was just like this online resource where everybody could just go on and say like, what is everyone using for this? And what is everybody doing for that? And I was like, well, hey, why don't we just create that? I don't know. It might just be this giant thing that's way bigger than us, but hey, let's do it. I don't know. So bear with us because we're just 2 people that have a business and kids and stuff, but we're really trying to pull this together. So the whole idea is to have a full and constantly growing resource list in a number of different topic areas. So starting a business, running a business, marketing a business, social media, branding a business, website, search engine optimization, resources for graphic designers, resources for photographers, resources for education in all different areas. Like what does Canada offer in all those areas? And if Canada doesn't offer something, what have we found as the alternative out there in the world? And again, it will start with Kelly and I sort of plopping in there what we've heard and what we know, but it will constantly be growing based on everybody that joins and the conversations that happen. And that sort of leads ourselves into further down the Facebook group. And I'll get to that. So we're hoping to have this full growing list of resources with different topics. We also want to have a listing of a members directory. So if you're a copywriter and you're a photographer and you're a graphic designer and you're an interior designer and you're a jewelry maker and you're whatever you do, we would love to have a resource that lists all of us as Canadians. So if I go, oh, I need a photographer and I'm a graphic designer, hey, I've got this amazing list of Canadian photographers that I can tap into. Or I need copywriting, who's out there? Well, I happen to have this list. Like we hope that we can cross-pollinate and really build this community of we're on here to learn, but we can also network and leverage each other's services. So just kind of have a directory going there. Every month, we're hoping to have members only live creative conversations. We'll record them and put them on some sort of a platform, YouTube or in our blog, so that you can go back and watch them, but if you're not a member, you're not going to be able to engage and really be part of these conversations and have that early access. And then we want to have a private Facebook group where we all get on there and it's open to ask any questions like, hey, I've got this client and they're doing this. Like, what do people do in these situations? Or I want to find a better way to process my invoices. And right now the service that I'm using is there's a 3% charge for the credit card going through. Does someone have a workaround? Like whatever those questions are related to running your business, we're hoping that this Facebook group will become this area for everyone to have those conversations that will be either live and topical, or something that you can go back and search and say, hey, has anyone been asking about this, and what were the answers from the group, and can I go back and sort of search this Facebook directory? VIP access to special events, and then feature opportunities on our blog. So if there's a topic that we're focusing on, if it's copywriting or photography, as we said, or other areas, or something that you're passionate about, or something that you have an experience with, we want to talk with you. We want you to share with the community and get on our blog and write about that. So that's sort of in the standard resource membership. We also have this 20 founding members, which is you guys, these sort of early adopters that are along with us, with, you know, in this community that isn't fully realized or fleshed out yet. And we want you to be our founding members and have that early access of that resource list. We want your eyes on it. We want your opinion. We want to know, is it helpful? Like, or what is in there that, or what isn't in there that you want to see, and really like help us grow that and have that opinion. And so what we're hoping is giving you that early access and these conversations, you can, you know, sort of establish that with us. And then having that first year membership, we're thinking for the first, like for the price of only 2 months. So just a couple cups of coffee, just sort of toss it into it, and then have that full access for the entire year, and really be a part of lifetime founding member discounts. Kelly, I've been talking a lot, so let me.
Yeah, I think basically everything that Marlo said. The ultimate goal is, yes, this resource list is literally everything that, yes, you could Google it and figure it out yourself, but we've already put in the time and Googled all the things. One of my points is, yes, I'll figure it out, and I'll figure it out. I'll Google it and find the answer. But that's the other thing. Like, if you're part of this community, we really want to be able to offer sort of a expert opinion, that if you have that question, there's no like, oh, I don't know, who do I answer? Should I go on this Facebook group? Should I do this? Oh no, I've already got this whole Canadian group and powerhouse here. I'm just going to ask this question, and I know it's already going to be valid because they're all running their businesses in the same place. I know personally, I am in quite a few groups, and the struggle with myself is, if I do ask those questions, I need to make sure I preface it with, I'm in Canada. Like, so if you're not in Canada and you're giving me a resource of a printer, go away. That may be valid, but I'm going to get duty and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, we really want to create a space where we can ask Canadian businesses, exactly like Marlo said, not to say a lot of the resources that we're showing are still going to be US, but we have vetted a lot of them as well, that they make sure that they'll ship to Canada or do all that. Like,
right.
I think, you know, kind of making sure that we've already done sort of a sweep, that there's not really anything here. And the other big thing is community. We so want this to be somewhere where you can literally send a message and, like, I don't know, I just cannot remember that first year or two in my business. And I had so many questions, and I didn't know who to ask, or I felt too embarrassed because I thought it was so dumb. But yeah, like, and I was like, I don't want to write a formal email about something. I just want to ask, how do I do this? Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And so we just want to kind of be there to support you and get through that. And so that's what we're starting to create. And we also have, I don't want to spoil all the things that we have on our like growing list. But yeah, so I think kind of want to open it up at this point, what you guys are like potentially looking for, what gravitated you to join this, like what are you kind of missing in your community or business? Yeah, what would be your number one thing that you'd be looking for while joining?
And while everyone's marinating on that, we jumped over the point that Kelly and I also originally started this with, like, the whole big dreamy eyes of being like, it'll be completely free. And so, you know, it feels weird saying that this is something that people are going to have to pay to join, but we realized very quickly that we can't afford to run our businesses and manage something that could potentially turn into this, like, it just takes time. So our goal is to just make it cost similar to like a couple cups of coffee that you would pay a friend if you were asking them a question. Like, let me take you out for coffee and ask you about your opinion on this. And that's been our kind of our approach of like, we don't know what that is yet, and that will be announced when we go live, hopefully later this summer. You guys will know earlier, but it's really just the kind of cup of coffee approach of like what you would just toss in to kind of get that question answered. So we really want to make it super approachable, especially for someone starting their business. We don't want this to be a massive investment. We already talked about earlier things to avoid, and that's those expensive memberships when you're first starting. We don't want to be that. We just want to make sure that we've got enough money in the bucket to help run this thing, but we're not looking to get rich off of it. We really more are focused on creating a valuable community. So
Yeah.
Just want to say that. But to Kelly's point, what are you guys hoping?
Yeah, what do you guys like?
What would you like to see?
What sparked your joy? Why did you join?
For me, it's about community as well. Like I have my photography community, which is great, but you know, I want to get to know other creatives outside of photography. But I also would like to get more into mentoring other photographers as well, because I have been in business for 13 years. So I'm definitely not in the starting out position. But, you know, I feel I have something to contribute to the community.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Yes, we love that. That's why we want you here.
I know.
I think I can say that, you know, it's sort of proof that branding works and is effective, because I'm here just initially because it's Kelly. And if she decided she's going to bake cupcakes tomorrow, I'd be on that call. So it's just part of like, I knew she was doing something, so of course I'm going to be involved. And I was super pumped to see that it was Canadian, because same reasons everybody else has. When you're trying to find any kind of resource, you end up in the rabbit hole and you're trying to figure it out how to make it work for us. And then I'm also interested in a place to direct and, you know, sort of help out the people that I'm working with on a regular basis, who are either at a point where they are starting a business, or they're rebranding a business, or they're in that overwhelm of what do I do next and all that kind of stuff. I feel like on that side of my business, I don't just want to provide the photography. I find value in supporting them in other ways as well, because at the end of the day, it's good for them, but it also, it works in favor of my business as well too. So there's value in being able to kind of point them in the direction of, oh, like come, which is usually, you know, when a branding thing comes up or somebody new and they're like, well, I think I need a website, I'm just not sure what I need next, right? I tend to get people at various stages of starting their business or working on it. And it just helps me to go see Kelly, or, you know, like start here. So I really would like a place to be able to kind of, and, you know, like have community and stuff like that myself, but also to be able to kind of direct people to get some support as well. And I mean, I think the side of community, like I've always done my business by myself, and we can all attest to liking or enjoying solopreneurship, but there is something to be said for, or things that I miss sometimes about having a team or having an office to go to every now and then, where I'm like, does this even make sense? Like, what is this? And you know, so that's always like helpful, I find too, when I find you know, a good people, like group of people that can bounce back on something and not just like, yeah, that sounds great, like your family or your friends who love you, like, of course, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, I want to know what's wrong with this issue. I want to know what's wrong with this idea, pick it apart, because you know,
Give me the tough love. Give me the tough love.
Tell me the dirty truth.
don't be too mean, but yeah, definitely tell me what's wrong with it.